I wanted to talk about how some of the things that Brian and Jorge presented are going to connect to how we look at the LifeRay business going in the future. As I was listening to both Brian and Jorge, the thought occurred to me that we have Brian Chan talking about JavaScript and Jorge saying the words full customer lifecycle, and then I'm going to talk about the community. So everything seems mixed up this morning, but hopefully it'll all make sense at the end of this. In the past, you've probably heard me talk about LifeRay's vision in terms of how we try to bring together our for-profit business, some of our nonprofit activity and volunteering, how all of that wants to support our impact to local communities. And a lot of you have told me that this is really important to you, that you really appreciate it. But part of me has also always felt that maybe, well, this is nice for LifeRay and it's nice for the people who work here, but what does that really mean for our larger community? And maybe more importantly, I always felt that this didn't quite explain how we wanted to operate as a company, because even the most ruthless billionaire, the most ruthless business person who makes a lot of money can then set up a foundation or something and give money away to make themselves feel better and to look good, right? Which I hope is not the reason why LifeRay does it, but the point being that how you conduct the business itself is just as important. So this morning I wanted to share and answer the question, what kind of business does LifeRay want to be? And I apologize for all of the diagrams of abstract circles I'm going to use. This is the best way I know how to communicate. So our vision, I would say, is that we don't want to have these firm lines between who's a customer, who's just part of the community, are you a partner or not a partner? We want to blur those lines, and we want to have everyone working together to make the most impact. Let me break that down for you a little bit. So I think as an open source company, what we've come to realize is that a great deal of our success is actually something that you could call non-monetized success. When someone takes LifeRay, they download it, and they use it to run a university department website, and we don't get any money for that, that's okay, because I still consider that a success. If we built something that was useful to someone, that helps them to run their organization better, to inform their students better, to teach a class better, then we're successful. And I also believe that this kind of success will eventually lead to financial success for LifeRay as a company, but also for you as developers, as system integrators, as some of our partners. And the better job that we do at both of these things, then ultimately we're going to have indirect impacts. All of you, stayed at hotels last night. If you were at the community day, we had some beers over at the Canary Club. We basically invested in the city of Amsterdam, right? And many of you in the community have, for years, were saying, hey, let's not have it in Darmstadt again. Let's move it to Amsterdam, some other place, right? I believe part of that is sort of the inherent hometown pride that we have. But I think part of it is also the indirect impact that we can have as the LifeRay community. So this is the vision that we want to make. And I do believe that we could have been successful without open source, but I think the indirect impact would have been a lot smaller. And more importantly, I actually think we would have been less successful than we have been without all of you guys. And so we recognize that, we're humbled by it, and we realize that we owe so much of our success to all of you. So what are some of the ways that we want to measure our non-monetized success? One of the most important things for us is, are our developers productive? Brian Chan covered a large, just such a large spectrum of different topics. And Jorge presented a lot of different new products that we have. But I realized that the thing that got the biggest applause when Brian showed that the startup time for LifeRay 7.1 GA2 had been reduced to under 30 seconds, right? It's these practical things. You're in the trenches every day, you're trying to hit your deadlines, you're trying to get as much work done as possible with as little time as possible. And that is one of the ways that we measure our success. Adoption and usage. I love the fact that I can travel all around the world and meet people like you, meet people in Italy and Madrid and next week in Frankfurt who just use LifeRay, are passionate about it. Of course, there are many frustrations, many things to fix, but the fact that you're here in this seat, that you're here to learn and to get more effective with LifeRay means that we've been successful. I was in Madrid and Milan a couple of weeks ago, and I had a chance to connect with the LifeRay community there. And I was reminded of what a special thing it is to be part of an open source community. And I want to just share a few examples of what that looks like in Italy. So this is a photo of one of the people from SMC, who's a partner of LifeRay, but very passionate advocates of our software in the community. And they're presenting what they call the Industry 4.0 Internet of Things experience. This is an area, of course, that LifeRay is interested in, but quite frankly, with all of the different products that we're launching and all of the things that we're trying to fix, we just don't have time to really look into the Internet of Things. And so the fact that we're open source, the fact that we have this passionate community of developers and these committed partners means that folks like SMC can be telling this story on behalf of LifeRay and really, again, maximizing that impact and that success. Another member of the Italian community has released a plugin called the SEO Helper, and I love the little tagline they have there: the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google. We at LifeRay have been notoriously bad at understanding some of the basic marketing requirements, things like SEO, things like campaign. And again, because we have the community, we're able to deliver a better, stronger product that fixes things like our bad friendly URLs without us having to be the ones that do all of it for you. I was also really encouraged just to see the different LifeRay user groups that still meet around the world. Jetta Francia organized this one in Italy. I'm not sure why there's this random Dutch guy in the photo there as well. But I think it's really neat. I love the fact that we're such an international community and the fact that we have this cross-pollination. And I think one of the things that all of us at LifeRay love is being able to travel to so many cool places and to meet wonderful people from around the world. Okay, so that's just a really small snapshot, right? But this sort of thing is happening around the world, in Latin America, in Vietnam. I see downloads of LifeRay from places like Iran, and then of course here in Europe, where the community is so strong. So this is what success looks like for me personally and for the LifeRay leadership team. And we just want to see more and more of this happening. Now, I was at the community event, I was talking with Corné. Corné is a long-standing member of the LifeRay community here in the Netherlands. He has poured his heart, soul, blood, and tears into LifeRay. And he started asking me these existential questions like, hey, is LifeRay going to be relevant in 5 years' time? It seems like business folks, they just get their software as a service. There's all these kids using JavaScript and I don't even know how to talk to them. What are we going to do, right? And it's true. I do think while we've been successful, we're at this make or break stage where we're either going to take it to the next level or we're going to be talking about LifeRay as, oh, that was that cool thing that we did back when we were young, right? So we want to do a couple of things to make sure that LifeRay continues not only to be relevant, but to grow. And I hope you saw from what Brian and Jorge presented that we've already done a lot of work in that regard. But there's two main themes here. The first is that we just need to do a better job of making LifeRay work with all the cool stuff. I remember when LifeRay was the cool stuff. That's probably about 10, 12 years ago, right? And now we're, Brian is actually on the sofa back there lying because he hurt his back flying on the plane here. I have had my own crisis with age and not being able to deal with jet lag as well as I used to be, right? So we're not young anymore, and our technology is not young anymore. So we need to work really hard to make Liferay work better with the cool stuff. And I think the net effect of this is that it's going to grow the community. A lot of us here come from a Java background, from an enterprise background, and I think if we do this right, we're going to see the community actually grow and include new members and new developers that we've never included before. So what are we doing here? Just to give you a couple of examples. So in Italy, Chema presented about some of the new things that we're doing with front-end technologies. I have just a short video clip here, and this is the moment where he showed Liferay services on the back end being called, I don't remember if it was a React or a Vue application, it was React. So this is just a standalone React application running in the browser, and he's able to call Liferay APIs for login and Liferay APIs for the document management to show an image gallery. Well, you're actually going to be able to see this whole talk. Ivan Zera is going to present it later today, I believe, a modern front-end development in Liferay DXP. And there's also a workshop on the same topic, so please do check those out. But I know we've been down this path a lot of times before. We had like a JRuby portlet or like a PHP portlet. This is deeper and more fundamental of a change than we've ever made at Liferay before. I know you have some skepticism. We went out and we created our own front-end frameworks and all these other one-off things that, quite frankly, we're never going to get that traction against these very popular mainstream technologies. So we've invested a lot to make Liferay work with these techs, and we want you to check that out. See, old age. Brian also mentioned that we are doing some work to make Liferay work better with CDI and Spring. We're working on the Spring stuff, but we've got sort of a cutting-edge future trends talk by Ray Auger on some of the work that we've done to make OSGI and CDI work better. The goal, like Brian said, is we don't want you to have to learn OSGI in order to get the most out of Liferay, even though as you get deeper into it, as you modify the core, you will have to learn it, but we will really want to reduce that learning curve. Milen Yankov pointed out to me it's really important that we don't overpromise on this point. Of course, there is still that underlying complexity there, but we do want to address it and make it easier and faster for you to get productive developing on Liferay 7.1. And then finally, one of the other things that you'll hear a lot about is Appio. This is our new framework for evolvable APIs that's making its way throughout the platform. You'll be able to hear about some of that tomorrow in a session at 10:25 with Pablo Agulla. But Appio is basically part of the Liferay open source projects, and we're working with other software vendors as well as community organizations to really solve this problem of how do you make it so that the clients that you build for APIs don't go out of date. And there's a way to do that by designing your API to be able to evolve as it becomes more feature-rich and robust. So that's one thing that you'll hear about in this conference as well. Okay, and the second thing that we really want to do, and you've seen, again, some of it already, is to make Liferay easier to work with. And this is our way of just loving the community so that you don't get so frustrated that you don't burn out and sort of give up on our technology. So there's several things we want to do in that regard. One of the things that we did sort of deliberately that I think looking back really was a mistake was we took clustering out of the community edition. Now, Antonio Musar, bless his heart, he has been working really hard over the last 2-3 years to make sure that there are ways to get clustering back in the community edition, to have support for the commercial app servers and databases, all that stuff. He even recently posted a blog about how to do clustering in Liferay 7.1 using Docker as well. Well, we believe that as a community we can make mistakes and we can fix those mistakes. So one of the things that we will do is to fully restore clustering in the community edition just as it was before. We want to say sorry for making that mistake, and thank you for being patient with us as we've sort of navigated our way in this sort of open source business ecosystem. So you should expect that later this year. One of the reasons why we're able to do this is that we have these new products, right? And so I think we have a lot more confidence that some of these new products will help us continue to grow, expand the business, keep investing in our community as well. But the other aspect of the new products is that it's also going to open up more opportunities for all of you to continue to have career growth and relevance in the market. I'm especially excited about LifeRay Commerce. I know some of the companies that you work with or some of the companies that you've started are not necessarily focused in the commerce space, but we believe that as a LifeRay community, this is a new frontier that we can go into together. Another thing that we want to commit to as well, you've probably seen in the last couple of years that we've had more frequent releases of LifeRay Community Edition. Well, going forward, what we are committing to is that we will now have new releases of LifeRay Community GA as frequently as we have the service packs for LifeRay Enterprise Edition. We realize that it's frustrating when the Community Edition is buggy, when it doesn't work, and we believe that we're going to create that value and enjoy that success when both the Enterprise Edition and the Community Edition are equally bug-free. Okay, and then finally, Milen, Rich Sezoff, Jorge Ferrer, Dave Trung, there have been a lot of people who have been working on the issue of documentation and knowledge management for the LifeRay community. I promised them that I wouldn't jump the gun and announce anything today. I just want you to know that one of the things that we're working on is how can we ensure that the knowledge that's being generated around LifeRay, whether you're a customer or not, whether you're a partner or not, is accessible, easy to search, and easy to use in your LifeRay projects, and that's something that we're working on as well. But in the meantime, one thing that I can share with you is that we have a new online training offering called LifeRay University. These are video tutorials that cover LifeRay, everything from the developer experience with OSGI, to administrators making the most out of Analytics Cloud and the server, to even business users who are building content on LifeRay 7.1. We've got videos. One of the things that we heard from many of you was that training is great, the team that delivers training is fantastic, but if I'm a consultant and I have to choose between having 5 billable days at a client or taking a LifeRay training, my manager probably wants me to be billable, right? So sometimes it's really hard to get out of your obligations to have on-site live training. So we think LifeRay University is going to be a way to get that training in a much more convenient fashion. We've already got additional training courses on the docket for LifeRay DXP Cloud as well. This is going to be a huge investment for us, and one that I think will ultimately make it easier for you to be LifeRay productive. Okay, so just to make this more concrete and make sure that you see that we're actually working on this, I wanted to show how business and community is going to work together with the example of LifeRay Commerce. So LifeRay Commerce was launched this year. Marco Leo and the team have worked really hard to get you an amazing commerce product. So how are we going to actually go to market with this? Well, if we were going to take the same model as we did with LifeRay DXP, we would have a separate community edition, and then we would have an enterprise edition. And the enterprise edition would come with a subscription that has the support, that has the additional features, and so forth, right? And we were actually going to go down this path. If you've been following the LifeRay Commerce project, you may know that we had a name for the open source version called Emporio, and we wanted to use that to foster adoption and growth on the open source side, and then have LifeRay Commerce as a commercial brand. Well, after a lot of soul searching and a lot of thinking about how are we going to make commerce successful, we decided that this is the wrong model for us. And so I'm really happy to share with you that with LifeRay Commerce, we are going to have a single core model. I call it an open source and business model because we're trying to achieve both here. So the actual LifeRay Commerce source code will be, it will be the same, and the core will be the same. And so if you're a paying customer and you start with LifeRay Commerce open source, you'll be able to simply take the subscription and add it as a complement to the LifeRay Commerce open source project that you already have. Those two will no longer be this artificial bifurcation. There will be an on-ramp. If you start with LifeRay Commerce open source, you can finish with LifeRay Commerce open source. Now, for those customers who need a commercial license, we'll be able to provide that as well. I know we have a lot of partners in the room. This is going to raise a lot of questions. How do you mix and match? If you have LifeRay CE, can you use LifeRay Commerce and then get the subscription, or does it have to be DXP? Those are things that we have answers for, but this is DevCon, so I'm not going to get into that. You know, at LifeRay, we haven't always done the best job of rolling out big decisions like this, but I thought this was important enough to share with you. So that's going to be the model going forward. And I really believe that that's going to be the way for LifeRay Commerce as an open source project and a business to grow as much as possible. So, LifeRay Commerce, it's actually downloadable as a bundle today. The team worked really hard to make this available for DevCon. So you can go to the LifeRay website and get the LifeRay Commerce package with GA2. We've got all the documentation there as well. And I believe, yeah, I forgot to bring Jorge's slide in as well, but we also have an official Docker image for LifeRay Commerce, so you can check that out today. Well, I just want to close by saying that I really believe that the right way forward is for us to achieve more together. Over the last 3 to 5 years, LifeRay as a company, we've been trying to figure out that right balance between open source and our business. And I think that after trying a lot of different things, we really want to come back to the things that we were good at in the past. And I believe with the new products, with the new resolve to be more relevant and easier to use as possible, we're going to be able to go even to greater heights than we've ever been before. I'm really excited to go there with you. Courtney, don't give up on us. It's going to be awesome, and I'm really happy that you're going to join that journey with us. So thanks for being here. Thank you.